Hey, boys and girls, it's Mr. Mac. Today we're going to be talking about place value. I know we did a little review in the past, but we're going to do a little bit more review today. All right. So, on this place, just as a quick review on this page, I wanted to talk about understanding digits and the place value positions. Okay. So, when we look here at this number, we have number one, we have 4,573. So, in the thousands place, we have the four. Okay. In the hundreds place, we have the five. In the tens place, we have the seven. And then the ones place, we have a three here. Okay. So that's just one thing I want you to understand is if you don't have a good understanding of the place value columns, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, I would definitely go back and watch my video about just place value and review that. Another thing that we want to talk about really quickly before we jump into the lesson is regrouping, where we have these models here for number four, and we can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're asking if you have 10 tens here and we regroup them, how could you regroup them? Well, 10 tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 is 100. So you would say that is equal to 100. Now, that's a really clean one. That's one that we usually see pretty easily. But when we look at this problem here for number five, we see we've got 1,000 and 10 hundreds. They want to know how many thousands that is. So we need to figure that out, right? This cube here, okay, is 1,000. So we know that we have 1,000. When we're talking about how many hundreds are here, there are 10 of those hundreds. Well, 10 hundreds is 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. You don't usually say 1,000. Usually you say 1,000. So that makes two total thousands, which when we look here, 2,000 would be 2,000. Okay, so we're regrouping, and that's going to be really helpful when we talk about place value, understanding that 10 of the same item, so 10 of the hundreds is actually going to be 1,000. And 10 of the ones is going to be a 10. And 10 of the tens is going to be 100. So I wanted to give you a chance to see that as our first example on this lesson. So I'm going to move over into the big part of our lesson, which is understanding the 10 to 1 relationship among place value relationship. And that's what we just talked about, place value positions, excuse me. And that's what we kind of just talked about, the 10 to 1 value there. When you have 10 of a specific unit, it's going to carry over as 1 unit in the next category. So on this problem, it says, on a road trip, Anna and her family stop at a ranch where bales of hay are being weighed. Describe the relationship between the two weights. How can you use the relationship to compare the weights? Well, we have one 50-pound weight here, right? And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 50-pound weights here. So when you want to compare these to each other, well, you got to remember that 10 of these 50-pound weights equal 500 pounds. So what does that mean? That means that 500 is 10 times the value of 50 because 10 of these equals 500. How do I know that? Well, I know that 2 50s is 100. Well, here's 2, and here's 2, and here's 2, here's 2, and then here's 2 as well. So how many hundreds did I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 500. So the biggest idea that we're going to be talking about today in our lesson is that every number, when it is 10 of them, when the digit is one place over, it is going to be 10 times the size of the value. So in here we had 50, and then we have 500. Okay, we know that 10 of these 50s are going to give me 500. So that means that 500 is 10 times the size of 50. All right, so that's kind of like our opening idea for this lesson. So when we shift over to the next page, it talks about place value with money, which we always love talking place value and money. So it says Anna's aunt opens a savings account for her. Anna, her brother, and her aunt all make contributions. The amount of each contribution is shown. So Anna's aunt put in two $100 bills, and Anna's brother put in two $10 bills, and Anna put in two $1 bills. So it says complete the place value chart to show the amount of money each person contributes. So Anna's aunt, did she put any thousands in? No, she put in 0 thousands. She put in two 100s, okay, and then she put in 0 tens and 0 ones. Okay, Anna's brother put in 0 thousands, 0 hundreds, two tens, and 0 ones. Anna put in 0 thousands, 0 hundreds, 0 tens, and two ones. Okay, so this is place value shown with money. We want to know how much money maybe did they contribute all together. Well, we can count that really quickly and say 100, 200, 210, 220, 221, and 222. We can see that, but that's not the question we're going to be asking here. In question B, they're asking, what is the relationship between the amount of money Anna's aunt contributes and the amount Anna's brother contributes. So we know that Anna's aunt contributed $200, which is right here, 200. And we know that her brother contributed $20. So when they're asking the relationship, they want to know 200 compared to 20. How are they compared? How are they related to each other? Well, since we have a 2 in the hundreds place and a 2 in the tens place, we know that that is one place value column different, which means every place value column is 10 times the size. So if we're talking bigger, right? So Anna's aunt gave 10 times the amount of money that Anna's brother gave. And if you had 20 and you counted 10 20s, that would give you 200. That's why it is 10 times the value. So I'm just going to put a 10 and a times sign here because that is a quick and easy answer for what's the relationship. It is 10 times the amount. Now it says for part C, how does the position of the digit 2 change when the amount Anna's brother contributes is multiplied by 10? Well, again, if we took 20 and we multiplied it by 10, okay, now every time you multiply by 10, the digit moves over one place. Okay, so it wouldn't be 20 because 20 times 10 is 200. So there would be a 2, and I'll change the colors I'm using just so it doesn't get too confusing. The 2 would end up being here in the hundreds place, and then we would have 0 tens to go with there. All right, so again, anytime you multiply by 10, your digit's going to move over to the next place value column. All right, so then if we look at the next one, it says, what is the relationship between the amount Anna contributes and the amount that Anna's brother contributes? So Anna here has $2, and her brother contributed 20. So now she's smaller, right? She's one place smaller. So it's not going to be 10 times the size. It is going to be a fraction. It is 1/10 times the size. Okay, the 10 is because it is one place value column, and it's a fraction because it's one place value column smaller. So it's not 10 times the size, it is 1/10 the size. All right, so when we're talking about, if we were comparing Anna's amount to Anna's aunt, that's 2 place value columns. So that would be 1/100th times the size, because it's 2 place value columns, and 2 place value columns means 100 times. All right. So now Anna compared to her aunt, Anna gave 1/100th times the amount. But if you were to compare it the other way and compare Anna's aunt to Anna, that would be 100 times the size. Okay. So again, if it's more, then you're talking 10 times the size or 100 times the size or even 1,000 times the size. And if it's smaller, you're looking at 1/10 times the size or 1/100th times the size. All right, it can be a little bit tricky, a little bit challenging, but if you think about it, it makes sense because Anna does not have 100 times the money in this situation than Anna's aunt, right? She has $2 contributed. Anna's aunt had 200. So she definitely doesn't have 100 times the size. She contributed a fraction of that amount, less than that amount. Okay, but when you look at Anna's aunt contributing $200, that's way more than Anna contributed. So you have to remember that that is 100 times the value there. Okay, so we're going to continue on. I'm going to erase this page, and if you need to see that, you can pause it and check it out more. But I'm going to. So when we jump onto this page, we're looking at completing this table. It says complete each column in the table. So we have 7,000. They want to know what number is 10 times as much as 7,000, right? So 10 times as much. So it is going to be bigger. So we need to know, we need to move this 7 one place to the left. So that's going to end up being 70,000 because 10 times as much means it's 10 times bigger, which is one place bigger. Now, when it says 1 times as much means it is the same amount. 1 times anything is itself. So then you have 7,000 here. Okay, 7,000 there. So now the next one, it says 1/10 of it. We want to know what 1/10 of 7,000 is. Now, 1/10 of it means it's going to be smaller. So you got to move the place value one place smaller. So instead of 7,000, they've shown 700 here. Okay, so again, 800, if it's 10 times as much, when you multiply by 10, okay, you're adding on a 0. So that would just be 8,000. Okay, 1 times as much is the same number. And then 1/10 the value, you're getting rid of a 0 here. So that would be equal to 80. Okay, and then the last one, we have 600,000 here. So when it's 10 times as much, we add on a 0. 1 times as much, you keep it the same. And then 1/10, so I'll write 600,000 in here. I'm not going to write it because it's a lot of writing. And then 1/10 of the size, we get rid of one of those zeros. So this would just be 60,000 as 1/10 of the value. All right. So the last part we're going to do here is part B. It says, how does the number of zeros change in each number? Change? When you do 10 times as much, your add is 0. So I'm going to say add is 0. Okay. And 1 times as much, it stays the same. Okay. And then in 1/10 the value, you lose a 0. All right. So 10 times bigger, you add on a 0. 1/10 the size, you lose a 0. And if it's 1 times the size, it stays the same. That's probably the biggest thing I want you to understand in this lesson, guys. 10 times the value, you add a 0. 1/10 the value, you take away a 0. If it was 100 times the value, you would add 2 zeros. And if it was 1/100th of the size the value times the value, you would lose 2 zeros. All right, guys. Hopefully this helps. And good luck with your lesson that goes with this.